There is a strange theatre that unfolds every day, a quiet tragedy disguised as confidence. At its center stands the person utterly convinced of their own brilliance. You can spot them instantly. Their voice arrives before their thoughts are formed, cutting through conversations, overflowing with declarations. They interrupt, they proclaim, they pound the table as though truth itself were trembling behind them, waiting to be released. Yet beneath all that bravado, there is nothing but emptiness, a barren field where no curiosity has ever taken root. They believe themselves sharp, not because they are, but because they lack the very depth required to recognize how little they know. Ignorance has gifted them a blindfold and told them it was sight. They march forward proudly, not because they see the world clearly, but because they cannot see the vast darkness surrounding them. To recognize one's limits demands a painful clarity, a courage few possess. True intelligence bruises the ego. It forces a person to confront their fragility, to admit how much remains beyond their grasp. But the one who lacks this capacity feels no discomfort, for they do not even know there is something missing. Like a man born underground who believes he owns eternity simply because he has never glimpsed the sky, they mistake their narrow view for a full horizon. And so they speak. They fill spaces with noise, mistaking confidence for insight, volume for authority. Doubt never touches them. They do not pause, do not question, do not feel the tremor of uncertainty that accompanies real thought. Their assurance is not armor forged from knowledge, but costume jewelry molded from ego. In a world that rewards performance over sincerity, such illusions thrive. A loud voice often travels further than a thoughtful mind, and applause is easier to earn with spectacle than with humility. Meanwhile, the truly perceptive hesitate. They measure, revise, consider. They know the mind can deceive, that certainty can be a trap. But their caution is misread as weakness, and their humility passes unnoticed, while the bluster of the confident ignorant dominates the stage. The Dunning-Kruger effect is not just a fascinating quirk of psychology, it is nature's cruel comedy. The less capable someone is, the more convinced they become of their own superiority. The less they understand, the more convinced they are that they have mastered the world. They live inside a funhouse mirror that flatters them endlessly, reflecting not reality, but a caricature of brilliance. And that mirror never cracks, because to doubt it would require intelligence they do not possess. Then there is the ego, clinging desperately like someone holding onto a life raft. To admit ignorance would be to face the abyss, to confront a world too large and complex to control. Far easier to crown oneself a prophet, to build a fortress of certainty brick by fragile brick, to declare one's limitations sacred truths. They elevate their narrowness into doctrine, transform insecurity into arrogance, and call it enlightenment. Mockery becomes their shield, condescension their language. They laugh at others to silence the whisper that might one day reveal the truth. They do not know. And today, the world hands them a megaphone, a screen, a few poorly digested ideas, a handful of half-learned facts, and suddenly they parade as authorities. The age of information has birthed a kingdom of illusion, where scrolling replaces study and confidence replaces competence. Shallow knowledge masquerades as wisdom. Algorithms reward certainty, not accuracy. In a culture obsessed with speed, those who reflect appear slow, and those who shout nonsense are crowned visionaries. This is why the self-assured ignorant flourish. They have never tasted the bitter beauty of doubt, never stood in the darkness of not knowing, and felt the humility of searching. They confuse clarity with oversimplification, truth with conviction. And in a way, they live in a blissful dream. For intelligence is not a comfort. It forces one to confront unanswered questions, to stumble through uncertainty, to feel the weight of a world that refuses easy understanding. The thoughtful soul walks, carrying the burden of awareness, while the confident fool dances in circles, believing the world turns beneath his feet. Perhaps that is the deepest irony. They dwell in a prison built of certainty and mistake it for a palace. They are chained by their own illusions, yet believe themselves free. Surrounded by shadows, they applaud themselves for seeing light. And all the while, the observant minds, the ones who question, who struggle, who wrestle with complexity, endure the quiet ache of understanding. So why do the foolish believe they are wise? Simply because they are foolish. And maybe ignorance, wrapped in certainty, is its own form of paradise. But paradise for one can be catastrophe for many. For when the loudest voices belong to the least aware, when arrogance rises and introspection sinks, the world tilts toward error. History may very well be the long record of the confident misguided leading the uncertain thoughtful. And as long as noise is mistaken for knowledge, the stage will belong to those who know least and fear doubt the most, while the true thinkers sit in the shadows, carrying the heavy gift of awareness.